Welcome to Storyflix. In this video, we will explain Evergreen Love. This movie tells the story of a woman who finds a man unconscious in front of her house. She then took him into her house and somehow, the two of them started living together. The man teaches her about collecting and cooking wild herbs, but he has a secret. Who exactly is the man, and what secret is he hiding? Let's find out in Evergreen Love. Evergreen Love begins by showing a woman named Sayaka who feels that life is never fair because there are always lucky and unlucky people. But Sayaka has always considered herself the most unfortunate person because she no longer has family or close relatives. After all, her father is dead and her mother has remarried and is living happily with her new family. Not only that, but Sayaka also often gets into trouble at work, where she works as a real estate agent. Sayaka thinks that her life is very boring because she always feels lonely. She also never felt happy because she didn't have friends or boyfriends and even only ate fast food because she wasn't good at cooking. One night, Sayaka dreamed that she was walking alone and accidentally met a man huddled in the cold outside her house. Sayaka didn't know the man at all, but the man asked her to let him into the house to warm himself. The meeting was actually normal, but for some reason Sayaka felt so happy when she met the man, even if only in a dream. However, when Sayaka woke up the following day, she was shocked when she found out that what she had experienced last night was not a dream and found the man cooking in her kitchen. The man greeted Sayaka in a friendly manner and made breakfast for her. Sayaka looked happy and really enjoyed her breakfast because it was the first time she had eaten such delicious home-cooked food in a long time. Because Sayaka felt helped by the man's presence at her house, she then allowed him to stay longer at her house. They then got acquainted, and the man introduced himself as Itsuki. Since Itsuki lives in her house, Sayaka feels that her life is more colorful and happy. Itsuki turns out to be not only handsome and good at cooking, but also very fond of all things wild herbs. Itsuki even memorized the names of various wild herbs that could be found in Sayaka's yard. One day, Itsuki asks Sayaka for permission to stay with him for 6 months, which coincides with Sayaka's birthday on the 15th of August. Sayaka also said that she didn't mind at all and allowed him to stay with her as long as he wanted. Itsuki always makes delicious dishes for Sayaka, even taking the time to make lunch for her. Sayaka's life begins to change and she becomes more enthusiastic about living her days after meeting Itsuki. The relationship between the two was very close, even though they were only housemates. Itsuki works part-time at a convenience store, where he always takes the night shift so that in the morning, he can make food and prepare lunch for Sayaka before she leaves for work. One day, Sayaka gets into trouble at work and gets scolded by her boss. However, when she returned home, Itsuki comforted and encouraged her so that she could forget about her problems at work. On holidays, Itsuki presents a bicycle for Sayaka so they can go for walks and visit fun places. Sayaka noticed that Itsuki had branded items that were quite expensive. However, she didn't dare to question it because it wasn't her business. Sayaka didn't know Itsuki's family name or where the man came from, but she knew very well that Itsuki was fond of wild herbs and photography. Itsuki even has the skills to process wild herbs into cooking ingredients and make delicious dishes, even though they only use simple ingredients. Sayaka was truly amazed by Itsuki's ability to cook, and she also felt pleased when he was by her side. There is actually a man named Takezawa, Sayaka's co-worker, who seems interested in her and always tries to get close to her. But Sayaka didn't like it because the only thing in her mind right now was Itsuki. Just thinking about Itsuki could make her feel happy, especially if she was with that guy. As time goes by, Sayaka and Itsuki's relationship gets closer. They often spend time together on vacation and visit fun places. Even though it's only by cycling and often just looking for wild herbs, then capturing them, Sayaka always feels happy as long as she does it with Itsuki. One day, Sayaka and Itsuki took a walk in the middle of a lovely meadow where Itsuki then made a flower crown and put it on Sayaka, then took a picture of her while smiling. Sayaka felt very happy that day and wanted that happiness to last forever. Sayaka gets into trouble again when a male customer invites her to do something obscene. Sayaka firmly refused the request, but the customer complained to her boss instead and said that Sayaka had been rude to him. Because she had done absolutely nothing wrong and had been slandered by the customer, Sayaka also tried to defend herself in front of her boss. In the end, she became the only person to blame for the incident. After work, Sayaka stops by a bookstore to buy a book about wild herbs so that her knowledge of wild herbs is not inferior to Itsuki's. On the next holiday, Itsuki took Sayaka to the riverside to look for wild herbs. Sayaka had slipped while passing through the rocks, but Itsuki immediately helped her. Itsuki then gave his handkerchief to Sayaka, who then realized that the handkerchief was a branded item that was very expensive. Sayaka then asks about the expensive handkerchief, and Itsuki only says that he got the handkerchief from his co-worker at work. But Sayaka didn't necessarily believe Itsuki's words, so she secretly followed Itsuki to work. Arriving there, Sayaka saw Itsuki, who was quite familiar with a woman at work. Itsuki immediately noticed Sayaka's presence, but Sayaka immediately left. Itsuki then chased Sayaka and hoped there would be no trouble between him and her, even though Sayaka actually felt jealous seeing Itsuki's intimacy with other women. Meanwhile, Sayaka spends more time with her co-workers, even coming home from work with Takezawa, even though Itsuki is waiting for her. Arriving at the house, Sayaka and Itsuki get into an argument until Sayaka accidentally reveals that she likes Itsuki. Hearing this, Itsuki reveals that he is also interested in Sayaka, so they decide to date. Sayaka and Itsuki are now living their days as lovers happily. One day, Sayaka invites Itsuki to attend a flower exhibition held by a famous ikebana artist, Ryame Tome, because she thinks that Itsuki might like plants other than wild herbs. However, Itsuki politely refused Sayaka's invitation, saying that he only liked wild herbs. Unknowingly, 6 months had passed since Itsuki lived with Sayaka. On Sayaka's birthday, Itsuki surprised her by making a birthday cake and giving her a book about wild herbs. Sayaka looks so happy to get all these gifts, especially when Itsuki is by her side and celebrates her birthday. But it turns out that happiness doesn't last long, because the next day, Itsuki decides to leave and leaves a piece of paper with a thank you note to Sayaka. Knowing that Itsuki has left and will not live with her anymore, Sayaka feels really lost and tries to find out Itsuki's whereabouts. Sayaka went to Itsuki's workplace but didn't find any clues. Even she couldn't hold back her sadness because Itsuki had left her. Sayaka's life then returns to normal, always feeling lonely and very boring. She went back to eating fast food and went about her days unenthusiastically without Itsuki by her side. One day, Sayaka accidentally runs into a woman who is Itsuki's co-worker at a convenience store. She then secretly followed the woman, hoping to get some clues about Itsuki and meet him again, because Sayaka got the information that Itsuki and the woman resigned at the same time. However, Sayaka was instead reported to the police because she was mistaken for a stalker. At the police station, Sayaka burst into tears when she shared how frustrated she was at the moment. She wanted to find Itsuki's whereabouts but didn't know where else to look for him or get clues about Itsuki. Sayaka's mother, Noriko, then came to the police station to guarantee her daughter. Arriving at the house, Noriko asks how Sayaka is and looks worried because she has been living alone all this time and only eats fast food. However, Sayaka said she was okay because she didn't want to make her mother feel worried and burdened. Sayaka is now a grown woman and she can take care of herself. Noriko and Sayaka then had a heart-to-heart conversation as mother and daughter after a long time. After making up again with her mother, Sayaka finally decides to move on and begins to accept the fact that Itsuki might never come back for her. However, Sayaka has never stopped loving Itsuki forever. Even as her relationship with Takezawa grew closer and they spent a lot of time together, she never turned her back on Itsuki and refused Takezawa's declaration of love. Sayaka then repeated what she often did with Itsuki, such as visiting some fun places, learning about wild herbs, collecting and cooking wild herbs as Itsuki had taught her. Over time, Sayaka begins to heal her wounds alone and still remembers her time with Itsuki, who always made her happy, even if it was just by doing simple things. 1 year had passed since Itsuki left Sayaka, and right on her birthday, Sayaka received a package from Itsuki, who presented a book about wild herbs to her. The book turns out to be Itsuki's work and becomes a clue for Sayaka to find him through the address printed on the envelope. Itsuki turns out to have published a book about wild herbs and will hold a press conference at a well-known hotel. Sayaka immediately rushed to find Itsuki's whereabouts after getting these clues. She came secretly to the press conference held at the hotel and finally saw Itsuki again after a long time. Itsuki is delivering his speech when Sayaka slips through the crowd, where it is revealed that Itsuki is the son of Ryame Tome, a famous ikebana artist. Sayaka begins to understand why Itsuki refuses her invitation to attend the Ryame Tome flower exhibition, because it turns out that the man is his father. Through his speech, Itsuki said that he was an heir to the family, but he thought that being the heir was not what he wanted, so he decided to leave home to find and determine his own path in life. Because he really likes wild herbs, he embarked on a journey to research various types of wild herbs and succeeded in publishing a book about wild herbs. Sayaka then left the venue while Itsuki was still delivering his speech on stage. She realized that she and Itsuki came from very different family backgrounds, so it was inappropriate for her to keep expecting Itsuki to come back to her. Sayaka said to herself that maybe she would never forget Itsuki for the rest of her life, remembering how he loved wild herbs, remembering when Itsuki made delicious dishes for her and took her to various places and did fun things. Arriving at the house, Sayaka was surprised by Itsuki's appearance in front of her house, just like when they first met. Itsuki then explained his departure and revealed why he left her, namely so that he found his own way of life. When he met and lived with Sayaka, he felt that his life was perfect. Itsuki said that he found half of his lost soul in Sayaka. However, he then realized that he had to find his other half, so he decided to leave her. After finding and determining his own path in life and finding the other half of his soul, Itsuki decides to return to the woman who has perfected his life, and that woman is Sayaka. In the end, Itsuki proposed to Sayaka and they officially became husband and wife. After marriage, Sayaka remains an office worker, while Itsuki pursues his passion for photography and wild herbs. They have perfected each other's lives and live happily ever after. The moral that we can learn from this film is, don't hesitate to find your identity and determine the path of life you want to live, because it will greatly affect your future. However, don't forget the people who are always there for us in difficult or happy situations, because their presence will perfect us in our lives.